Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to my very first YouTube channel. So my name is Dadang Ilham Kurniawan Mujono, and you can simply call me Dadang. Well, I'm an Indonesian citizen, but currently I am staying in Singapore uh, for continue my PhD studies here at the National University of Singapore. So in my very first on YouTube channel and my very first YouTube video, I would like to discuss about one of the topics that become one of the interesting issues and also becoming one of the trends of the subfields of international relations scholarships. While back in Indonesia, I also works as a lecturer of international relations department in Mulawarman University. So it's really honor for me that I finally able to make this YouTube channel. Well, actually, my ultimate aim to make these channels not only uh, uh, well the ultimate goal is I would like to share my my knowledge or my insights to, well, perhaps the most prominent target of this video is my students, of course, back in Indonesia, for my IR students. But since I'm living for study in NUS in Singapore, so perhaps this material can quite useful for introduction of the topic that I would like to present. So once I return in Indonesia, let's say in at the end of 2024, I hope so. So students of international relations in Mulawarman University, or perhaps other viewers can quite understand the topic that I'm about to present. So perhaps you guys also might wonder why I speak in English instead of Bahasa Indonesia. Well, technically speaking, I would like to challenge myself because my target viewers not just from Indonesian students, in particular my student in Mulawarman University, but also perhaps my colleagues or students at the NUS. So, but I also realized that since I'm not a native English speaker, because my native language is Bahasa Indonesia, so I would like to apologize at the first place if I make some grammatical mistakes or errors, or also make some mispronounce throughout the presentation or throughout the entire discussion for today's discussion. Anyway, so thank you so much for watching this video. So I would like to share my screen, okay? All right, so, well, I'm using a Zoom platform in order to make myself easier to present the topic that I would like to discuss. Well, the topic that I intend to discuss is paradiplomacy. So I formulate a very simple title, which is Paradiplomacy at a Glance. So usually when I teach in Samarinda, in Mulawarman University, I always start my class or my discussion or a small chit chat with my students with simple questions, which is in the case of our discussion today is, what do you know about paradiplomacy? Because I do believe that not everyone knows about paradiplomacy, and also not every lecturer is also knows about paradiplomacy, right? Because generally speaking, paradiplomacy is consider is a new sub branches or sub branches of international relations. In at the same time, it also considered as the sub branches of comparative politics in terms of the activities of paradiplomacy itself. So again, what do you know about paradiplomacy? Perhaps you can drop some comments in the column section. I think this is one of the ways or one of the tools or the path interaction between me as a speaker and you guys as my viewers. So just post your comments about what is paradiplomacy. Let's imagine or let's pretend that you know nothing about paradiplomacy, or you just start watch this video before our video is ended. So, well, the easiest way to understand the initial definition, or let's say the initial background of paradiplomacy, by looking the following pictures. So picture number 1, we have a border cooperation between North Kalimantan provincial government, Indonesia, and Sabah state government, Malaysia. The second picture, I do think that the second picture was blocked by my video. So anyway, just listen to my voice, okay? Is a trilateral cooperation between South Sulawesi provincial government of Indonesia with Hasanuddin University, one of the most, I think one of the honorable university in Indonesia. I think that it is one of the top 10 university in Indonesia, with a Hime University of Japan. And we also have the third picture, which is education education cooperation between East Java Provincial Government and Western Australia Government. And the last one, we have startups cooperation between West Java Provincial Government and the British government. Perhaps after seeing these pictures, you guys might wonder, well, usually foreign cooperation signed by head of states or at least foreign ministers, right? But why there are no head of states here, or why there are no foreign ministers in these pictures? Well, most of the MOU signed by governors and also university professors or the president of university or rector of the university. Well, the answer is simplistic, because paradiplomacy is not discussing about specifically, not discussing about the involvement of head of states or foreign minister in terms of foreign relation between subnational governments with their foreign counterparts. But in some way or in other ways, let's say in general, the involvement of central government along with Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of course, is inevitable in terms of paradiplomacy, because, well, actually we can discuss it later, because there are distinctions between paradiplomacy in federal states and also unitary and centralized states. But I think that will be another discussion for the upcoming videos, not today. Okay, so yeah, so our initial guess is that paradiplomacy is a term that describes international activities by subnational governments. But of course, as we said earlier, or as I said earlier, that this is only our initial guess. As a scholar or someone who concern or focus about academics or research activities, that we have to consider to take a look other opinions or other experts opinions about the topic that we are about discussing, right? So we have to consider other experts' opinion about the definition of paradiplomacy. Well, it started by Soldatos in 1990, which is external activities of regions in international affairs. Michael Keating in 1999 said that involvement of regional governments in the international affairs or international arena. And LeCourse in 2008, an activity by regional governments in developing international relations. And the fourth, the last one, which is from Mr. Takdir Ali Mukti. This is one of the prominent scholars of paradiplomacy in Indonesia, which based in Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, for which I discussed a lot with him in recent months. Yeah, it's about relationship and international cooperation by the subnational governments. So shortly after we are seeing some definition of paradiplomacy by some experts, that paradiplomacy is activities that describe international engagements by subnational governments, SNGs, or by non-state actors or local governments. So I hope that after, at least in this space, we already know about, when we heard paradiplomacy, oh, okay, I do know about paradiplomacy. It means that some activities, right, or some engagement by subnational governments or regional governments or non-state actors in international arena or in international affairs or in international relations. And when we are also listening or hearing or noticing about paradiplomacy, I think one of the most obvious examples about of paradiplomacy is sister cities cooperation, right? So I think students of international relations these days, in particular my students in Lower University, some of them are keen to discuss about sister cities between some provincial governments in Indonesia. Most of them are discussing sister cities in Java, because where I come from, which is from East Kalimantan, the candidate of the new capital city, we have no sister cities yet until now in East Kalimantan. So yeah, we will figure it out why we don't have any sister cities cooperation until now in East Kalimantan and why. So yeah, okay. So remember, if you heard paradiplomacy, it means that international engagements by subnational governments, okay? So when we are discussing about paradiplomacy, we might also ask a very simple question as well. Does paradiplomacy is part of international relations, or is it part of comparative politics? Comparative politics means political science, okay? So let's try to find it out. According to Kuznetsov 2014 and Mukti 2021, paradiplomacy is closely related to domestic affairs. That means paradiplomacy is an intersection between domestic and foreign affairs. So as you can see, the figure on the slide, it clearly shows that paradiplomacy is between domestic affairs and foreign affairs. So perhaps the answers of these questions or these doubts, why do you think paradiplomacy is within domestic affairs or in between domestic affairs and foreign affairs? Well, because as I said earlier, the main actor of paradiplomacy is non-state actors, which is local governments, or in some way, we are also discussing about local elites, local politics, or local motives, which most of these aspects are being scrutinized or being discussed or being researched by comparative politics scholars. So where's the place for international relations scholars like me and my colleagues or other students of IR? Well, of course, we can discuss about foreign policy or foreign affairs in different scope or in different level. Well, when we are discussing about foreign affairs, which carried out by head of states or foreign minister or trade minister, most of them are discussing about foreign affairs in national level or in national level, right? But when we are discussing about paradiplomacy, it means that we are discussing foreign affairs as well, but in the scope of regional or in the scope of local. So it's quite different, but it's quite similar as well. So that's why, according to both experts, which I mentioned on this slide, is paradiplomacy closely related to intermestic or intersection between domestic and foreign affairs. So there is no final consensus in academia whether paradiplomacy is entirely part of international relations, because comparative politics scholars sometimes are also scrutinizing international engagement by some national governments. But it is also important to note that most of comparative politics scholars discussed about subnational foreign policy or paradiplomacy in a different way, in a different angle, or in a different perspective. Well, most of IR scholars will discuss about the foreign engagement, or let's say trade engagement, or let's say diplomatic engagement between this province to other province, or let's say discuss about sister cities between Jakarta and Beijing, others, and so on. But for comparative politics scholars, they will certainly discuss, or they will obviously discuss about what is the local motive, or what are the local elite motives behind the attitude of local elites toward the paradiplomacy. Is there a specific motives, or is there confidential reasons, or is there a specific motives behind the attitudes of these local elites which engage with paradiplomacy? Well, it is very interesting, right, to discuss about paradiplomacy in other perspectives. So that's why we have to expand, we have to widen, or we have to open our insight, our perspective, or our knowledge in order to be, I think, yeah, to be a wise man, of course, or wise people, and also a truly scholar. Okay, so it means that we're not just focused on one thing, right? So anyway, so as a scholar, however, we certainly have to decide, right, whether it is part of IR or it is part of comparative politics. Because usually when we are about to submit or propose our research proposal, our supervisor or your professors will, what I meant to say was your professor will ask a question. Do you think the topic that you are about to propose, or topic that you are about to present, is part of IR? Or is it part of comparative politics, or is it part of administration, public administration, and so on? So yeah, I think that's one of the challenges, or one of the obstacles being a scholar, right? So yeah. Anyway, so well, as paradiplomacy highlights the involvement of subnational governments or non-state actors in international relations, and at the same time, international relations scholarship is also discussing the rise of the non-state actor, which is called multi-track diplomacy. Well, in terms of speaking about multi-track diplomacy, I have a book which discusses about multi-track diplomacy. Well, but I think I would like to endorse my own book later. Anyway, so I argue that paradiplomacy could be considered, okay, could be considered as one of the international relationship branches. And at the same time, it's also possible to be one of the comparative politic branches. So it depends on you. So if you are more highlights or more emphasize about the international engagement or international relation of this particular paradiplomacy activity between one region to other region in abroad. So I think I suggest and I recommend to you to focus on international relations side or international relation point of view or perspective in discussing this topic. Okay, it's not that hard anyway. So after knowing that paradiplomacy could be part of international relation or comparative politics, I think we should also we should also we should also find out, or we should also search, or we should also discover, and we should also observe how was paradiplomacy developed over time. So I'm showing this figure on the slide. As you can see that, well, there are 5 stages of the development of paradiplomacy. Well, it started in 1970s, the first stage, which is characterized by international political activities or by provincial governments in Canada and states in the United States. Okay, states means provincial. Okay, province. I mean, in the United States. Well, they are not mentioned or say states. I'm sorry, province is that province, but they said states. Okay, because U.S. is a federal state, not a centralized country or centralized state like Indonesia. Okay, so 1970s as the first stage of paradiplomacy, because they are noticing. I'm sorry, what I meant to say was they were noticing the international activities by subnational governments during the time between Canada province and states in the United States. Okay, United States is America. Okay, so, okay, you have to remember it. And in 1980s, the second stage was an attempting to conceptualize foreign activities by regional government. So during this second stage, scholars from North America, most of them, or which is from the United States, try to conceptualize. Oh, okay, we have international activities by subnational governments, so we have to conceptualize what is this, right? What kind of type or what kind of pattern or what kind of topics that they are being carried out, okay? Or what kind of topic that are being discussed by this particular subnational government. So they are trying to, they were trying to conceptualize this state of the art or the new or the marvel of international activities by subnational government. So in 1990s, which is the third stage, well, study about paradiplomacy not just happening or not just occurring in America and Canada, but it started to expand to Europe due to the global political change and the fall of the Iron Curtain. And we arrive in the fourth stage, which is in 2000s, where paradiplomacy finally, the study of paradiplomacy can be conceptualized, defined, and crystallized in terms of the definition, conceptual frameworks, motives, others, and so on, actors, right, as one of the sub-disciplines of contemporary political science. So you have to you must be wondering, right? Well, as I said earlier, paradiplomacy can be considered as international relation. At the same time, it also can be considered as political science or comparative politics, because paradiplomacy is located in between domestic affairs and foreign affairs, right? So, but not to worry too much about that, because that is the art of academics, because we don't have any the term finish, or there is no final consensus in academia in terms of, yeah, it is part of the academic debates, right? And in post 2000s, of course, paradiplomacy literature or scholarship began to grow significantly, extremely rising, and indirectly became the beginning of development paradiplomacy studies by various scholars from various parts of the world. So in post 2000s, paradiplomacy not only being scrutinized or being discussed by Western scholars or Europe scholars. Yeah, I think Europe is also Western. Okay. Anyway, sorry for that. So paradiplomacy started to being scrutinized, being discussed, or being researched by non-Western scholars, followed by the new topics of paradiplomacy of non-Western case studies. So when in pre-2000s, most of scholarship about paradiplomacy discussing about paradiplomacy in America or paradiplomacy in Europe or paradiplomacy in Canada, others and so on. But in post-2000s, scholars try to discuss or try to discover the new state-of-the-art paradiplomacy in Asia, let's say in Japan or in China or in South Korea or in Indonesia, of course. So yeah, like the development of paradiplomacy, right? So after knowing the development of paradiplomacy, we shall also have to address a question as well, which is what are the basic arguments behind the establishment of paradiplomacy, right? So, well, there are several main arguments behind the establishment of paradiplomacy, of course. Well, the very first arguments, which is because, as I said earlier, the main actors of paradiplomacy is non-state actor, or let's say, let's consider the main actor is subnational governments. So, of course, the very first reason why paradiplomacy emerged is because subnational government wanted the region to be more developed. So let's consider East Kalimantan province in Indonesia, where Mula Warman University is located. Knowing as one of the richest province in Indonesia, and also one of the biggest contributor for Indonesian national revenue. Unfortunately, when we compare in terms of infrastructure development between East Kalimantan province and, yeah, let's say in Java, or let's say in Jakarta or in Surabaya or in Bandung, well, based on my own observation, I think that East Kalimantan is much less developed than those cities in Java, right? There are a lot of argumentation behind of this particular situation. Well, it's because the lack or the sparse population in East Kalimantan, or because of Java, there are tons, or let's say in East Java is the central or the most populous province in Indonesia, or because there are a lot of foreign companies or foreign companies headquartered in Java, so that's why they are investing a lot of capitals in Java compared to East Kalimantan. So because of this particular situation, some national governments wanted to make the region more developed, more advanced, or more have cutting edge technology in terms of infrastructure development, others, and so on. So basically, they want to manage their resources or their natural resources. So in hoping that they can generate or gain income from the exploitation or activities or economic management in the region, and they don't have to share or they don't have to transfer those money or those revenues which produced by local government to the central government. So I think that's one of the reasons, right? One of the reasons. The second reason is subnational governments wanted to involve in international engagements. Well, there are a lot of reasons why subnational governments wanted to involve in international engagement. First, of course, they would like to increase their profile. Yeah, let's say, well, I just met Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know. I hope that I correct pronounce the name of former governor of California. I think I just say Arnold, okay? Sorry if I made some mistakes. And anyway, so yeah, I just met a former governor of California, which is Arnold, right? The actor of Terminator, right? So, well, then after that, he used a picture between him and Arnold as the one of the one of the campaigns, a poster, you know, in the region, in order to make sure to his voters that, well, I'm quite international minded, right? Well, when I'm becoming a mayor or when I'm becoming a governor, I would like to make these cities more developed because I already engage or I already established international networking with governor of California in the United States of America. So yeah, that could be one of the reasons, you know, to highlight or to increase your profile. Okay. But another reasons, I think, based on my observation and also based on literature review that I have done, is that by engaging with international societies, subnational governments definitely can increase their technology advancement because from these activities, the transfer of technology can be occurred or can be emerged because cities which don't have, let's say, cutting edge technology, they can engage or they can collaborate with cities, let's say in Beijing or perhaps in Kuala Lumpur, to help these particular cities which don't have quite good in terms of technology or for smart cities, to help them how to implement or how to use smart cities in order to make everything is streamlined in the city, right? So that could be useful as well. And the third reason behind the decision to engage with international activities is, of course, in terms of economic reasons. So most of cities or regional government would like to export their commodities to foreign markets. So, for instance, if Jakarta, or I'm bored with Jakarta anyway. Let's say consider Samarinda, okay? So when Samarinda engage with, let's say Kuala Lumpur lah. No, Kuala Lumpur is too far. Let's say Samarinda with Tawau, okay? Yeah, because it is quite near from Samarinda. It's still one island, right? On the island of Borneo. So let's consider a sister city between Samarinda and Tawau. Samarinda has quite good. I don't know what is a good community of Samarinda. Well, I'm living in Samarinda anyway, but not now. Okay, let's consider Samarinda has excellent community of rice. Okay, let's just pretend. Okay, Or the coal. Yeah. Samarinda is famous with coal, right? Okay, coal. You know coal mining, batu bara. So Samarinda would like to export their coal, the legal coal, not the illegal coal. Yeah, legal coal. Okay, legal coal to Tawau, for instance, through the Mahakam River. Okay, one of the longest river in Indonesia. So they would like to expand their market internationally to Tawau, because Tawau, let's say, like in coal, so they require coal from their neighbor, which is Samarinda. Okay, so by doing these smart cities or sister cities or trade arrangement agreement between Samarinda and Tawau, they can achieve or they can implement free trade zone, okay, or zero tax between these two cities. Okay, so you can imagine when Samarinda can export their coal to Tawau, and Tawau doesn't apply or doesn't require, let's say, taxes from Samarinda in order to enter Tawau's market. So it is, in other words, it is very lucrative business for Samarinda government, right? Because they can export their products without a tax. So it's incredible. So that is part of the reasons why cities would like to engage internationally with their foreign counterparts. But of course, you have to remember as well, you have to note as well that, well, as the discussion that I just mentioned earlier is not that easy, right? Like we flip our hand, because while we are discussing about coal, you have to remember the involvement of central government in Indonesia. Do you think central government will allow Samarinda to export their coal to Tawau without central government direct supervision? I don't know. So we have to find it out, right? But at least the point is, one of the reasons why subnational governments are keen to engage internationally, yeah, of course, they would like to generate more money through various ways. One of them by free trade arrangement. Okay, I hope you got it. And the last one, of course, subnational governments wanted to manage their regions independently. Well, this is just quite similar with the first one and the second one. It means that they don't want to be bothered by central governments because of the regulation, bureaucracy, others and so on, or let's say the central government require or demand the subnational governments, hey, you have to give me your money because I'm the one which provide you with this sort of investment projects. I gave you this sort of infrastructure project in coal, which you guys, the local government, don't have such those monies in order to build this huge infrastructure project, others and so on, right? The local government only have the natural resources, that they don't have facility to exploit it. So they require assistance from the central government. In return, of course, you have to share your revenue, right? Because, well, you couldn't survive alone. You have to collaborate with other sectors. And one of them is central government. What about other actors besides subnational government? So I think, yeah, there are a lot of actors as well, because as I said earlier, when we are discussing about, paradiplomacy, the actor is not just governments or subnational governments, but other actors. Let's consider local politics and local elites. As Keating highlights, the implementation of subnational foreign policy or paradiplomacy heavily relies upon the credential of key individuals. As a result, some of paradiplomacy is extremely vulnerable due to the highly involvement of key credentials. Well, for instance, when governor of Sulawesi, Governor Nur Alam, the picture, the number three, the picture number three from the left, which wearing the corruption jacket from the Commission of Corruption Eradication of Indonesia, was establishing international cooperation between Sulawesi and Chinese investor to make a smelter in Sulawesi. But unfortunately, this governor was detained by KPK, or the Commission of Corruption Eradication of Indonesia, due to the bribery case. So, I think not only me who said that Indonesia is notoriously known as one of the I don't know. I don't know how to say. I'm afraid. In terms of bureaucracy, there are lots of, or there are tons of procedures, bureaucracy in Indonesia, right? So many foreign investors are, let's say, they are reluctantly want to invest their capital in Indonesia because there are tons of bureaucracy and regulations. So in order to make their investment run smoothly, so they will introduce some strategies. Okay, so one of the strategies to make the foreign investments run smoothly by bribing the chief of the local government, in this case the governor. Yeah, they bribe the governor. Thank God, the KPK finally found him guilty because of receiving bribery. Okay, I think that's one of the drawbacks of paradiplomacy, right? Because there is no strict or direct supervision by central government, so that's why local government can easily exercise their power. Yeah, in some way also try to generate more income money from foreign investment. I mean, foreign investors. Some local elites also take advantage from the paradiplomacy activity to increase their profile, like I said earlier. Okay, and at the same time, the autonomy given by the central government to some national governments could lead to unprecedented situations in region in terms of successions movement, which coined by Cornago as Porto diplomacy or separatist movement in Aceh and Papua. In Aceh, we known as what is in Aceh? Oh, Gerakan Aceh Merdeka, free movement of Aceh, which demand the independence of Aceh, especially during 2000s, yeah, when Indonesia led by former President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. And of course, in Papua, they have Organisasi Papua Merdeka or Free Movement Papua, which also demand to withdraw from the central government, to withdraw from Indonesia because of racial issues, development issues, and political issues, other and so on. Yeah, as I said earlier, because paradiplomacy discuss about local authority in terms of engaging international relations. So these particular activities or situation in somehow are used by local elites or local governments to seek their confidential motives, okay, or seek their specific motives, such as what happened in Aceh and Papua. They would like to withdraw from Indonesia by engaging foreign relation with other states, or other foreign counterparts. While in the case of Aceh, Gerakan Aceh Merdeka or Free Movement Aceh was supported by Iran and Syria at the time during the confrontation during the 2000s. Yeah, you can find it in Google if you don't believe me, okay? And also, while in Papua, it is even more worsening because they get a lot of sports. Most of them are coming from the Pacific Ocean countries. Yeah, you know, there are there are more than 6 countries already give support the independence of West Papua as independent country. So that's too bad, right? Anyway, so we finally reached our conclusion for today's discussion. So, of course, I would like to just wrap up again that we have discussed about definition of paradiplomacy, development of paradiplomacy, actors of paradiplomacy, and also motives of paradiplomacy. So I do hope that you guys enjoy my discussion. Maybe if you think that this discussion is too long, I actually hope that our discussion will last for 30 minutes, but I think this is more than 30 minutes. So just drop your comments in the column section, okay? If you think that this channel is good, I think there is no reason not to like this video and perhaps subscribe it. Anyway, so of course, our discussion about diplomacy will not just finish at this time or this video. I would like to continue my other videos or other discussion later during the next presentation or the next discussion, okay? So don't forget to drop your comments here and okay, maybe you can address a question. I'm going to stop sharing now. So thanks so much. Goodbye. Thank you.